Assalamu alaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Welcome to another episode of Did You Know Business. My guest for today is a seasoned development manager with over 18 years experience in the public and private sector. His engagement cut across subject areas that include but not limited to strategic planning, infrastructure development, operational and process management, and human capital development. My guest for today holds a BSc in economics, an MBA in entrepreneurial management, and several associate membership, including the Harvard Kennedy School of Government, USA, Dale Carnegie of Georgia, USA, and Public Service Institute here in Nigeria. He is a chief operating officer of Billard Realty. He plays an integral role in overseeing the daily operations of the organization while driving critical process targeting at the promotion, or rather promoting interdivisional synergy and collaborational strategy execution. He also focuses on leadership development and continuous improvement. Ladies and gentlemen, my guest for today, Sadiq Suleiman Abdullahi. Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam.
Good to have you on the program.
I'm glad to be here.
You know, I'm so tense when they told me I'll be interviewing the COO of Billard Realty. And I was like, okay, Shurem, you are below 30. You want to be a CEO, a big CEO or something. And now you're interviewing somebody that is up there. I have to be very careful with my words. How you doing?
I'm fine. I'm glad and I'm humbled. It's a privilege to be here.
MashaAllah, great to have you. I would like to let you know that your reputation precedes you based on what you do. And one of the things that has turned out the most about you is the fact that you always keep to time. Everyone says, this man keeps to time. He's going to be there by 11. Make sure it happens by 11. And I'm like, okay, inshallah, I'm going to make that happen. Let's talk about a little bit about time. How do you think time is important to we as human beings and we as young adults?
I think basically it's unfortunate that a lot of people want to succeed,
right,
and they're not deliberate about it. And I believe of all the things that were given to mankind, time is the only one that is completely beyond your control. I arrived at the studio at about 15 to 11 for an 11 o'clock interview. Even if you gave me $1 billion, I'll never be able to buy 10:45 a.m. back again. So it's very important we live deliberately. It's very important that we are deliberate with our goals. If you ask the average human being how much time do you have in a day, he would say 24 hours, right?
Right.
You've automatically gotten it wrong because you're asleep for 7 to 8. You spend about an hour commuting to and from work, an hour for bathroom breaks, an hour having meals. So your productive hours are just between 4 and 6 every day, and you have to learn to use them wisely.
Wow, that's mind-blowing, mashallah. All right, let's get to the crux of our conversation for today. We want to talk about realty, basically, talk about real estate and likes of it. So many people are going into real estate. Everybody is building houses. Every young person today want to go real estate because we assume that there's a huge amount of money there. But when it comes to the sustainability of that, of the infrastructure, how to make it much more easier for people to love the houses, so many people are getting wrong in that aspect. Tell me, everybody going to what they call real estate, what is the next big thing for real estate?
I'll give you a quick answer, then I'll break it down as we go along. The next best thing would be intelligent, integrated communities, and I'll tell you what I mean. If you look at the history of mankind, as it were, the evolution of mankind, every odd 50 to 75 years since the 18th century, we have a breakthrough in either medicine, technology, whatever it is, whatever subject area you look at, to get a breakthrough. And I'll give you an example. We had the electric bulb and the telephone by Thomas Edison and Alexander Graham Bell, respectively, right? And for a very, very long time, you only had variations of the telephone. It was not up until about 30 years ago you had cellular technology, right? So everything that you had before then was a variation of the telephone. Similarly, if you look at the housing sector, whether it's in a subnational, suburb, or here in the FCT, most of the developers have been basically doing the same thing in the last 15 to 20 years. And it's only recently that developers, and it's one of the reasons why this company went into the market, by the way, to solve a problem, not just to identify and solve a problem, not just to make money. I tell budding entrepreneurs that for every time you go into business, you have one of two approaches. You're not going to business because you want to make money first, then you look for a niche market, and 90% of the time entrepreneurs fall flat on their faces. But if you go into a business because you've identified and you want to solve a problem, right? I think everything else is about your strategy, your route to market, taking care of your people, and gradual expansion and improvement. So as far as the real estate sector is concerned, I think it's only recently that developers begun to take into cognizance sustainability in their buildings. I think before now, it was a quick in and out, build houses, make money, and move on. But we looked at a holistic lifestyle in terms of security, in terms of leisure, because Abuja is a budding, bustling city. So do you have a playground where your kids have a safe space to play at? If my wife would want to come out and jog during the daytime, has that provision been made? You look at sustainability in terms of your working life and your life after that. You would agree with me that the bills you are paying now may be unsustainable by the time you go into retirement 100%. And you're earning about a fifth of what you're earning now. So we're looking at energy efficiency, we're looking at carbon emission and footprints, just the general safety, sustainability, and lifestyle. So a number of companies, including ourselves, are incorporating the sustainability lifestyle in terms of thinking about incorporating energy and IT infrastructure in the buildings. So if you go into an estate 10 years ago, right, no matter how beautiful it is, it's already defaced because you see every house with a DSTV dish, or if you drive behind the estate, you see every house with a gas cylinder. But we've taken all of that away by reticulating the houses with gas, fiber optic, so it's a complete total 360-degree lifestyle where when you're moving into a house, everything has been thought about for you. As far as the next best thing is concerned, it's important to integrate intelligence into smart living. So it's not good enough for me for you to be able to give your brother who just came in from the village access into your house when you're in the office. I mean, most smart homes can do that. But how about integrating intelligence so that you reduce your energy use, right? Your house should be able to know when you get back from work so that your water heater comes on and stays on for just the amount of time where we get heating. Your house should know, and I'm guilty of that. Sometimes I put on my water heater and I head out of the house because I believe, whenever light comes on, I get heating. And I'm sure everyone here is guilty of that as well. So the next best thing is integrating intelligence. So your house thinks for you, your house is future ready, your energy consumption, carbon footprint and emission is low, and you're building an ecosystem around the communal area. We've begun to look at future possibilities. For example, in one of our estates, we installed a biodigester. Right. And just for sake of this conversation, a biodigester is a machine or equipment that breaks down compost, either human or animal waste, and also things like food leftovers, right? Breaks it down and it comes out with two products. So you have organic fertilizer on the one hand, then you have biogas. And biogas, when processed further, can be used to either power vehicles, for heating, or for cooking. So we are looking at that type of integration. Sustainability and building an ecosystem around our communal areas.
That's really amazing. You made a very important point whereby it's a lot of young entrepreneurs or a lot of people going into business. The first thing they have in mind is how can we make money, and sometimes it doesn't make what they do sustainable and likes of it. Now, my next question to you is, for someone who wants to go into real estate at the moment, right? And as you said, of course, definitely a lot of other things people want to do, that new things that are coming up and likes of it, like what you've mentioned, and these are things that I can't imagine leaving my house and like coming back and mashallah the AC just gets on because the house knows that I'm there, the heater on because I'm there and the likes of it. But money is important. How do we draw a balance?
I think the importance of R&D, research and development, cannot be overemphasized. Not just in real estate, in every business fair. I believe our Chief Business Strategy Officer, Abdullahi Umar, was on this same platform, and he spoke about university-industry collaboration. Sure. I won't dwell on that, but I'll speak about incorporating R&D into business. Now, I'll give you another practical example. In 2001, when cellular technology launched in Nigeria, the pioneer networks to come into the space were MTN and Econet at the time, which has changed names about 5 or 6 times and is currently Airtel, right? And I recall very clearly, because I just exited the university around then, And SIM cards were going for as high as 20,000 naira, 30,000 naira, right? And it cost about 50 naira a minute, thereabout. Now, down the line, I think, and of course the cell phones too were also expensive. Now, a lot of R&D engagements, crunching numbers, feedbacks from marketing service, etc. It does two things for you. In every society, you have different social classes, right? And you have the wants and needs of every consumer group. So my grandmother in the village does not need to take a selfie and send to me. She just needs to call and say, Abubakar Sadiq, how are you doing? And how are my grandkids, etc., right? So she would not need an Android of 60,000 naira, right? She would need a basic phone that a SIM could go in. And today you could get that for as little as maybe a 3,000 or 4,000 naira. Coming back to the real estate sector, it's very, very important that those partnerships between the organized private sector and the academia are continuous. So we look at, incredibly, we just had an expanded management meeting a couple of days ago with Tactical Tier, and I was very glad to hear some of the thinking and leadership from the people whom we believe will be handing over the company to the next 2 to 3 years. And one of my officers said, look, sir, we need to have a dedicated sub-unit that does R&D, so that we look at new building technology, etc. And with breakthrough innovation in technology comes cheaper costs, right? So everything you have today that costs a particular amount of money, I guarantee you, guaranteed 3 to 5 years down the line, it's going to be cheaper. Not because the quality is less, but because there's breakthrough in technology that has pointed the direction on how to get that thing done better. So this becomes either obsolete or less of quality. So I think it's very, very important. And I like to mention, in much more developed climes, right, the academic community, they make a load of money from the private sector, because everything that has to do with continuous improvement in innovation is put on the foot of the university. So if you go to any Division 1 university in the United States, Stanford, Rice, Harvard, right, and you may have money to give them to research into a product or into a service, or it may be consumer behavior. Why aren't people buying, or why is it that last year that? And they'll tell you, look, we will not be able to attend to you till the next 24 months. You have to go on a queue. But it's sad that today we have local communities that are producing granules, right? A businessman wants to fabricate a machine that presses these granules and makes granite oil out of them, and he goes all the way to China. And every other state has a University of Technology. You have one in neighboring Mina, you have Owerri, you have, right? So I think it's very, very important that platforms are created where that collaboration between the academic community and the private sector.
Amazing.
Yes, and from innovation, creativity comes lowered cost, comes improvement in product.
Amazing.
So basically, when academic excellence meets with industry and enterprise, amazing things happen.
That's really amazing. We're going to take a short break and we'll be right back.
Thank you so much.
All right, viewers, stay tuned and we'll be right back. All right, welcome back. We've been discussing with Abubakar Sadiq on a very important topic. So many people are into real estate. We want to know how or what is the new thing in the real estate, and how we as young people, or you as a business individual, can make your company more sustainable in the system. Abubakar, welcome back.
Thank you so much.
Jazakallah khair. Before we went on a break, you said something very profound that I think so many people don't really think about it, and that was about how you said next 2 or 3 years you are already training people that will succeed you in owning or perhaps running your company. How important do you think that is in any company for it to become successful in the future?
I think it's a cornerstone of continuity and building corporate cultures that would outlast generations. If you look at the top maybe 100 companies in the Fortune 500 list, apart from the tech companies and the people who are tech millionaires and joined the list, say maybe 8, 12, 15 years ago, most of those companies are easily 100 years plus. And one of the analogies I give my team members all the time is, if you walked into a McDonald's fast food restaurant in Boise, Idaho, in 1962, you're going to be greeted the same way. If you ordered the Big Mac, maybe in 1962, you were, say, 5 or 6 years old, and you walked into a McDonald's restaurant in 2022 in Inglewood, California. 2 different destinations, right? You'll be greeted the exact same way. And the Big Mac is going to taste exactly the same like it tasted, as long as it's the same burger you ordered. I think successful companies are built on amazing corporate culture. And systems make for success, but people drive systems. So when you build a system with an excellent culture, you also have to invest a lot in the people that are going to take it to the next level. So by rule of thumb, for every responsibility I've been privileged to handle in the last 19 years of my career, my initial priority is to identify and begin to mentor the people, because anything could happen. You may get bored and want to have a career change, right? You may die.
Absolutely.
Right. You may get a better offer in another organization, and we're human beings. As primitive as it sounds, everybody likes to make progress, move on, be better, etc. So the first thing that comes to my mind is, how do I ensure the knowledge is captured and transferred? How do I ensure that the success being enjoyed by either my team or the company at large, because I run the operations of the entire company now, right, is not truncated by the fact that I stepped away, either by career change, retirement, death, etc. So not just for Billard Realty, I think in whatever sphere, either the public or private sectors, we've seen amazing turnarounds in countries like Malaysia, Singapore. If you go and read about those countries, they're very, very deliberate about their succession plan. So I think it is important for companies to be deliberate in succession planning if they want to achieve continual and sustainable success.
That's really amazing, subhanAllah, and I just learned so much from that. May Allah bless you.
I mean,
my next question is this. You're the CEO of Billard, right? What is Billard doing to see that they help people achieve, a sustainable lifestyle, basically?
2 things. One, I mentioned the R&D bit earlier, and we have a robust corporate social responsibility framework. And besides social investments, which I think, personally, I think there's room for us to do more, because social issues won't go away.
Sure.
And the truth of the matter is, one of the essential mistakes that private sector practitioners have is they assume the government, would do everything. And the truth of the matter is, unless if you are in a monarchy or a welfare system, the government would be limited to foreign policy, maybe defense and regulation. Every other thing, as far as development is concerned, is to a large extent in the hands of the private sector. As far as living the sustainable lifestyle is concerned, we look at it 3-pronged. One, teaching financial intelligence. So if you go either on our website or you handle any of our brochures, under services provided, you would see investment advisory service. And what that means is, when we come in contact with a client or customer,
right,
we are not obsessed, or our primary objective is not to take the is not to take money and offload inventory on them, right? We engage them to understand what their financial standing is, the size of their family, what their long-term goals are, and advise appropriately. So you find out that some people start off wanting to buy a very, very large house. But after engagements, and owing to the fact that they have small families and they don't intend to stay in FCT longer than their working life, we say, look, you don't need more than X size of house. I mean, it's your money, but I would advise you buy, a building that would cost less, then invest the other money in smaller buildings and get rental income. So I think part of what we do, besides the regular build and sell, is transaction and investment advisory services to ensure that our clients and customers have the required financial intelligence. So there's a balance between their work life when they're earning a lot of money and can invest in fixed assets and after retirement as well.
That's amazing. That's amazing. So tell me, what you personally? Well, of course, we know that man has attained technological advancement. Personally, what would you like to see technologically advance in homes?
Wow, you just touched something very sensitive. Okay, if I asked you, I mean, we're both still young, relatively.
No, brother, you have the white beard. I'm still growing.
Okay, if I asked you where you would want to spend retirement, or if I asked anybody in this room where they want to spend retirement, half of the people in this room would mention, a developed subnational, Kaduna, Kano, Lagos, Port Harcourt, etc., right? Then the other half would mention somewhere that is, I think less than 10% of people would say, or Hafia, or Kumbora, or Serti, as in the last village. Reason being, the disparity between the lifestyle of people living in urban centers and the villages is very, very wide. And that is why you have, this mass exodus of people in terms of rural-urban migration on a daily. I mean, I've been living here since, I think, 96, when late Sani Abacha was president. And I can tell you the population explosion in Abuja now is, I was telling one of my team members, I said, look, in the next 3 to 5 years, Abuja may be looking something like Lagos because of the amount of people coming in. There's a reason for that. I think we could put a process in place to reverse that by investing in the housing sector. But what I mean by investment is having rural communities experience that innovation and technology, and it will not cost us an arm and a leg. The energy needs are, you could have cheap off-grid houses. We're obsessed with brick and mortar technology, right? But if you go to advanced countries, I mean, there are programs on your series where you see Renovate My Home and you see a house torn down and built all the way from scratch in like 5 to 6 days. It's not brick and mortar. There's a lot of, there's prefab, there's butterfly, there's so much. And Nigeria as a production center we're so blessed. Everything you can imagine that comes out of the soil in terms of raw material happens here, whether it's rubber, whether it's trees, and we have massive land. Nigeria is about 900,000 square kilometers of land, and there aren't any two states that are adjoining. If you live one state and you're going to the other, you drive past empty land. So I like to see a collaboration between the public and private sector, because if you look at all the factors of production when you are building a house, right? I think land is the one that is finite. Right. It's not, I mean, I just mentioned we have exactly 900,000 square kilometers, so it's not an infinite resource. And everything regarding land administration is still in the hands of the government. However, if you look at the size of the private sector and if you look at the value chain of building a house, I think apart, if you take land out, all the other factors of production are in the hands of the private sector. So if you're looking at modern brick and mortar houses, or if you're looking at integrating rural communities into the housing revolution, where you'd say in every village or in every rural area, right, we'll do 200 mass social houses. This house will not cost more than maybe a 500,000 or 1 million naira. They're surrounded by those raw materials. All you have to do is concentrate or invest in setting up production centers and building ecosystems around these communities based on their areas of competitive advantage. So for example, if my community has a lot of trees, right? Or if my community has a lot of crystal talc, so you find out that there's that particular community in Birnin Kebbi that produce prefab boards. There's another community that produces plastic handles for doors, etc., right? You're creating jobs, you are slowing down the exodus caused by, mass rural urban migration, right? And hopefully 10, 15 years down the line, if you ask any public servant or any private sector practitioner that has spent the better part of his life in Lagos or in Port Harcourt or in Abuja, where do you want to retire? He would call his village, because he knows when he gets there, there are some sustainability, elements. He's off the grid, but there's solar technology. These people don't, You recall growing up, we had local technology. For example, in my village up till now, there are still compounds I go to that I see the randa,
Yeah.
the local technology for cooling water.
Sure.
Till today, I don't know how it works, right? So if we can find a way of building ecosystems around these communities based on their areas of competitive advantage, we will address the housing crisis, because we have a 20 million deficit. And our population is growing in geometric progression. I don't think any single government, even if you look at an 8-year two-term, I don't think any government have succeeded in delivering 250,000 houses.
Right.
So it means there will be a continuous build-up. So unless we look at that collaboration between the public and private sector, where resources are galvanized, so for the government, land administration, and policy as well. Sometimes you have a budding private sector. In the last 10 years, you have banks declaring profit. It doesn't reflect on small and medium enterprises. Still see prices going up. So besides holding land, which is a major factor of production, could also use policy to accelerate growth in the mass housing sector. So if, for example, you have a consortium of companies, right, that you've brought together to say, okay, we will deliver 500 houses in every local government over the next 15 years. That is the plan. All the government needs to do is to provide land where necessary, one, and have maybe a tax moratorium or a tax book and say, okay, for all of the companies. So imagine banks, people that produce solar panels, plumbing materials, electric materials, anyone who feeds into the value chain and keys into that project to get a tax holiday. Then, of course, you have a mechanism to monitor. Then you have development partners. You have the World Bank. You have it's amazing. It's amazing.
That's really amazing, Sadiq. Let's come back to mentorship.
Right.
What advice do you have for young emerging adults who are new to the real world? Because I'm young. I'm below 30. So for my peers now,
stop saying you're young. I'm sure I'm probably only a couple of months. I'm sure I'm probably only a couple of months older than you. But go ahead.
Well, yeah, amazing. But a lot of young people, right, are confused.
Right.
Should I work in the civil society? Civil service. Should I own a business? What should I do first? Some people have a talent, and they want to explore on that talent. Want to unleash that innermost potential that they do have, but unfortunately, we live in a society whereby we don't have mentors to mentor people that much. Everybody basically is on his own. So what advice do you have for this young person who is lost?
Okay, two things. One, in anything you're going to do, whether you're an athlete, whether you're a businessman, whether you work in the public sector, it's very, very important for you to have discipline. And one of the sure routes, to having that discipline is by following a structured path. I'll give you an example. If I got back to the office and I said, oh, I realize some of you are early birds and some of you are nocturnal. So your productive hours may be from 8 o'clock to 12 o'clock, and another person's productive hours may be sometime in that one while sleeping. And I say, okay, no more attendance, no more rules regarding resumption time and closing. I guarantee you 80% of my workforce will not be in the office by 8 o'clock, regardless of if people are naturally inclined to take the lazy part, or less if they have this intrinsic burning desire to succeed. And what motivates people differ. For some, it's they're orphans and they have no choice, they have to succeed. For some, is because they grew up around excellence, whether it's public sector excellence, and they have. For some, is because, there is no hard and fast rule to what motivates people, but my initial advice, I said two things. My initial advice to every young person that wants to be an entrepreneur is you have to be disciplined. And the best way to have discipline is to work in a structure. So I rarely advise people who just finish university to leave university and dip their hands in entrepreneurship. You know why?
Right.
There are basic elements that are required for a budding business person or a young entrepreneur to succeed. And we're still not where we should be as a country. I'll speak about four things very quickly. transport infrastructure. So whether you are in the product or service market, you need transport infrastructure. You need energy infrastructure, and you know what the story is. You need IT infrastructure, right? Then you need access to credit. You see these four things: transport infrastructure, energy infrastructure, IT infrastructure, and access to credit. If these four elements were at 70% or above, right? When I finished university about 20 years ago, I may not have looked for a first job, because there were lots of things that I was interested in, I had a flair for, and I experimented and I was good at. But because there wasn't transport infrastructure, I generated my own light, and it cut heavily into my profits. I didn't have IT infrastructure, and I didn't have access to credit to scale out. So the next best thing for an entrepreneur is to be disciplined. So what I would advise is, straight out of university, your initial option should not be to start to, because you've never handled a business before. You need the discipline. You also need a network, then you need money too. So I would advise, get a job. If you get a job, don't say, oh, I'm too big to work, or the idea that I have. There are lots of young people, right? And social media doesn't help matters. There's information overload. So a lot of young people move around with ideas in their head and go to sleep with those same ideas and do absolutely nothing about it. For entrepreneurs, my advice is, no matter how potent your idea is, no matter how successful you think you will be by pursuing your dreams, you need discipline. And because of how we're structured, and because of I wouldn't say complete absence of, because of I wouldn't say lack of, I'm trying to be careful with words, because our transport, energy, IT infrastructure, and access to microcredit is not as how it should be, right? You're better off getting a job, whether it's in public or private sector. Be disciplined. Learn how to be disciplined enough to wake up, make your bed, make your breakfast, come to work and win. Then build a network. Learn how to write, learn how to make a high impact presentation. Because if I'm going to make a pitch for somebody to invest in my business, it has to be impeccably packaged. No matter how intelligent, and even if you're an honor student, if you've never worked before, you'll still be wet behind your ears. So for me, the biggest advice I would have, and here's the thing, for myself and my colleagues in the C-suite, right? We all have extensive work experience serving other people in different sectors. So you build a network, you learn soft skills, whether it's building and leading teams, because nobody achieves success alone, right? That would be my advice. And the second thing is, once you feel you're ready, you've cut your teeth, you've built a network, you go with your gut feeling. There's never ever, life will never ever present the perfect conditions for you to start something that is important, whether it's getting married, starting a postgraduate degree, life will never ever present you with perfect conditions. So once you've straight out of college, you've built a discipline, built a network, have a little bit of savings, and you cut your teeth, and your gut instinct tells you it's time to take the leap of faith. Do it. There's a 50% chance that you'd fail, but guess what? There's also a 50% chance that you'd succeed.
Wow, Sadiq, there's so much to take in. Jazakallah khair. Thank you so much, man. Alhamdulillah, before we end this program, I just have one last question.
Okay.
Now, you have advised we the young people, right? What advice do you have for people like yourself that have, a lot of experience under their belt? They've seen things. What advice do you have for them towards the younger generation that are trying to be like them?
I think it takes me back to the reason for our existence as human beings. You see, a lot of people spend the better parts of their life chasing the wrong things, right? Regardless of, because I know we have a lot of viewers, regardless of what your belief system is, I think what unites everyone, whether you're Muslim, Christian, Jew, Buddhist, you worship Rama, whatever it is, right? None of us is going to live forever, right?
Right.
So what we have, the common denominator is death. We're all going to die. Now, the question we should ask ourselves is, what would you want to be remembered for when you die? The flashy cars you drove, the big houses you owned. You're going to be in the grave with none of those things. So there's this thing I say all the time: pay it forward, pay it forward, pay it forward. And what that simply means is, in everything that you do, your thoughts should be, how can I be of service to humanity? In everything that you do. I mean, we're primitive. I mean, we have bills to pay. I mean, I have kids, right? We have bills to pay. We want to go for nice holidays, buy nice shoes. I get all of that. However, in everything that you're doing that is communal in nature, right? The first thing you should ask yourself is this thing going to benefit all of us? And is it going to benefit humanity? If your answer is no, please don't do it. I'm speaking from personal experience. I was young. I've made a lot of mistakes. I have made a lot of decisions that, looking back, be considered to be dumb. However, my philosophy is everything on your learning curve is an act of learning, good or bad. So if it's good, you learned. Then if it didn't go well, you learned what not to do, right? So for me, as far as the older generation are concerned, I think they should pay it forward. Everybody that is 50 years and above that is alive today benefited from a system in this country. They got scholarships. I'm a product of the pro-unitat system. I went to a federal government college. I never paid school fees for one day because I was an honors student from when I stepped into when I left, and my state government paid, etc. You had multinational companies coming to universities at the time to pick the best students. These things are more or less becoming obsolete. So for everyone that is privileged, either in wealth, either in knowledge, either in network, they should look at those privileges as a responsibility given to them by Almighty God. It's not for you, it's given to you in trust. So I should not find myself going through a system and getting to where I am, like you mentioned, CO, etc., right? I would want to look at John or Vino and say, okay, I'll take you under my wing, and 5 years down the line, it should be, there's nothing special. I mean, I came up in humble beginnings, right? So just to answer your question directly, it's a responsibility. You asked me initially, what should the young generation do? And I said it in clear terms. For the older generation, it's our responsibility to ensure, one, everything that is given to us in trust, education, wealth, professional network, social network, political network, right, is used in service of humanity. And we should also ensure we preserve the system we benefited from, right, for the generation coming after us.
That's really amazing. Thank you so much for coming on the program, Sadiq.
Thank you so much.
All right, there, viewers. Yeah, I know there's so much to take in. There's so much to act upon. As you all know, we always tell you this program is meant for you to better the kind of person you are, and also to teach other people to become better people in the society. Until the next episode, we leave you all in the care of the most gracious, the most merciful. Assalamu alaikum.